Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about writing a research proposal. How do you write a research proposal and what makes a good research proposal? If you're going to apply for a PhD position or a master's by research position, then you need to write a research proposal to submit with your application. Not every university will ask you for this, but many do. So you should be prepared for writing a research proposal. What goes into a research proposal? So, just to give you the idea of headings, you should include a basic introduction, a literature review, research questions or research gaps, and proposed methodology. This should be followed by references because everything that you put in your research proposal should be properly referenced. Then, the last thing that you should think about is your research title. I tell you to put this at the last because once you have written everything down and you have carefully thought about the research questions, then you might have a better idea of what your research title should be because it should reflect what you're going to do in that project. So keep it for the last. Now, breaking down what goes into every heading. Your introduction should be really short about what you're proposing to do. And technically, you can also skip an introduction. The most important part is the literature review because this is where you show what you know about the field. Here, you should include some of the recent papers or some of the most important papers from your field of research to show that you have carefully studied what you're proposing and you know what goes into the background story. So, once you have that written down, then you will have an idea of what gaps still remain. The literature review will be your ground for building upon, and then you build your research questions or research gaps. Once you have identified what gaps you want to address, then you move towards research questions. And make sure that these research questions are concise and not too broad. Your research topic should not be too broad because it will then be all over the place and it is not technically good to make it too broad because otherwise you will not be able to answer all these questions. You need to keep it realistic. For example, if you're proposing to study a disease, any disease or anything, whichever your field is, you should first take a look at whether you want to see the causes of the disease or the types of treatments. Once you decide what you are going towards, then you break down into what causes a particular disease, and then you pick one particular cause that you want to study further or one particular treatment method that you want to study further. Similarly, if you are from the engineering field or literature field, keep it narrow, do not keep it too broad. For example, if you're studying literature, don't say I will be studying Shakespeare's work because that is too broad. Pick something up that is relatively new, that ideally not many people have studied before, and something that you have found as a gap in literature because you really need to do your homework here. You need to explore what is still unexplored and what questions you want to answer. It shouldn't be too repetitive, it shouldn't be too broad. It has to be something relatively new or unanswered, unexplored, and something realistically achievable during your master's or your PhD. Once you have thought about all this and written all this down, then you need to propose a research methodology. Now, this doesn't have to be extremely on point or extremely detailed about what methods you will use, but it is important to tell them what methods you think you will be using. What technology and what tools can you employ to answer your research questions? Because the research recruitment team or the PhD recruitment team is trying to identify whether you know how to solve problems. And if you have thought of a research methodology, that would then tell them that you have not only thought of questions, but you have thought of a plan about how you will answer those questions. So, you first write your literature review, you write your research questions, and then you give a plan, that is your methodology of what you will do to answer those questions. After this, you come towards the references. Everything that you have written in your literature review has to be referenced because your research proposal should be plagiarism free and you should not make claims that you have picked from someone else's work. So reference everything and give a concise list of references. Once you have written everything down, the next step is now to think of your title. You have already thought of what your literature review is. what your research questions are, what methodology you will employ. So take that and then try to push out a title which is concise and self explanatory about what you're proposing to do. Once all the writing is done, then look at the formatting. Do not forget to format your research proposal nicely, because if it is not properly aligned, if the headings are not clearly distinguishable, or it is hard to follow, then chances are people will not really enjoy reading it or will just skim through it. Do not leave that to chance. Just make sure you format it correctly. And anything that is very, very important or you think is a very important point that you're trying to make should ideally be really nicely and easily readable. For example, if there is a really important point that you're trying to make in your literature review, ideally keep it in the first paragraph or the end of a paragraph, somewhere where the reader is really likely to find it if he or she is skimming through it. Make sure that you keep things easily available to your reader. Do not hide them in too many words. Avoid wordiness. And on that note, make sure that your research proposal is not too wordy. Whatever word limit you have been given, just stick to it. And if you have not been given a word limit, try to keep your research proposal below 4,000 words ideally, because this will be read by a team that has many other research proposals to read, and they are not expecting you to break down all 3 or 4 years of your PhD on paper. That is not the point. You just have to convey that you have thought about your research project, your research questions, and the methodology. That can easily be done within 4,000 words. So just stick to that. Once you have formatted, edited, and made sure that you are within the word limit, then please check the spellings and grammar. Do not send something where you convey that you're not serious about checking your spellings and grammar. Spelling mistakes can be a really turn off point for many people. So do not do that. And if English is not your first language, it is completely okay to take help for proofreading. Try to make sure that whatever you submit is the absolute best that you're giving forward. Another really important point is to make sure that you submit earlier than the deadline. Because if you leave your research proposal as the very last thing, chances are it will be a rush proposal and it will not be very good. So make sure that you give yourself ample time to develop your research proposal, to write it, edit it, proofread it, and then submit in time. So, just to summarize, make sure that your research proposal sticks to the word limit, is free of grammar and spelling mistake, and addresses all the important headings. Your title is concise and self explanatory. You have not excluded any references that were important, and that you have reread it to make sure that you are satisfied with it and that it conveys what you are trying to portray to the research recruitment committee. If you take care of all of this, there is no reason why you should not get your desired academic position or the scholarship you're looking for. It will hopefully help you a lot if you keep your research proposal really nice, concise, and self explanatory. I wish you good luck with it, and that is all from my side for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any further questions, please comment down below and I would be happy to answer them. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so, and I will see you in the next video.